Hello, everybody. Check, making sure that the audio is looking good. Video looks good. Audio seems good. So, hello, everybody. What's going on? My name is Javon, and today we're going to be going over free to plays versus pay to plays, just finding work as a voice actor. Finding work as a voice actor is one of the most difficult things that you keep butting up against, whether that is you're doing client work, whether that is you're going free to play route or the pay to play route like voices 123 websites like that. So today we're just going to be going over basically how I went about finding work and some methods that you can use in order to go about finding work. So let's go ahead and jump right in. Number one, we need to understand what's the difference between a free to play, a pay to play, or a direct marketing relationship, which is a little spoiler here, which is the best type of relationship. A direct marketing relationship is going to be the best type of relationship that you can actually pursue. A free to play is something like Fiverr, something like Voice Bunny. They're websites in which you can put up your samples, you can put up your demos, and algorithmically it will match you to people who are looking for something that you fit. So if you say that you do young adult voices, the website will match you to people who are looking for young adult voices, male in America, English, and they match your certain specifications. Once again, these are websites like Fiverr. These are websites like not voices 123 bucks. Well, guess what? Right off the bat, they're going to be making $20. So you're going to be losing $20 in that transaction. Now, not free to play. Pay to play websites are websites that you pay upfront for to access. So that would be websites like Voices, which is I think it's $4.99 or $5.99. Sometimes you can get it on sale for $1.99. That's the main website that I use. I use Voices a lot. There's Voices 123. They have different tiers, and you can pay whichever one. It's like 99 bucks, 199. There's one for 399. It goes all the way up to a couple grand in order to be a part of this website and part of the platform. And in these websites, typically there's a little bit more incentive, something like Fiverr, where anybody can just go and make an account. With a website that you have to actually pay in order to access, there's going to be a walled garden. So that way, when you pay, you're typically going to have less competition in these areas. So that's one of the positives. However, it's still on that side. Typically, these websites will not only take an upfront fee from you, but they'll also still end up taking money as a percentage on the back end. So I know Voices still takes like 20%. So not only are you paying that $5.99, but you're also getting charged 20%. Now there are websites that do not do any of this. So there is this VoPlanet. VoPlanet charges $1.99. So it is a pay to play website, but they don't take a percentage. So whatever you charge, have at it. You get to keep 100% of that. Well, you don't, you got to pay taxes, but you get to keep 100% of that. So these are just the differences between a fee to play or a pay to play and a free to play. Understanding that each of these websites have their own little eccentricities. Now, when it comes to actually finding work on these websites, what is the thing that sets you apart from any of the other thousands of voice actors on these websites? And if anybody has any questions, go ahead and leave them in the chat as we're talking about free to play, pay to play, and direct marketing relationships. Well, the main thing that you need to know in order to, I guess, make it on any of these platforms is simply this. How can you make it so that you, when you're first seen, draw the eye of the listener? Now, what do I mean by this? There are a couple of things that you have to keep in mind. When it comes to voiceover, when it comes to voice acting, there are a couple of things that you have to keep in mind. Number one, you run a business. So, as this business, you need to have branding in mind. So, you need to put front and center who you have worked with in the past. If you look up any of my profiles, they say I've worked with Spotify, I've worked with M&M's, I've worked with Mattel, I've worked with Marvel, I've worked with all of these companies so that people can see a track record of who I've worked with. If they have a place where you can have reviews, that's going to also be one of the most important things. No matter who you are, people love to see samples of your work and love to see reviews of your past work. So that can be an indicator of them actually, hiring you for this job. They need to see that you have done the work before, you've done it in a style that they're looking for, and that you are actually trustworthy. that at the end of the day, you will give them a high quality finished product and that you've done that time and time and time again. It's building trust with your actual clients. Third most important thing, samples. You want to make sure that you load up all of your profiles with samples, whether that be on free to play or pay to play websites or your own website. But we'll go to that when we're talking about direct marketing. What do I mean when I say load up samples? In all of these websites, they have typically unlimited space for you to load samples, and you want to be taking advantage of that because you're going to be able to tag each and every one of those samples so that people will be able to find you. So if you're doing a sample where it's like a younger character voice, you'll be able to put young character, um, energetic, high energy, high strung, annoying, obnoxious. You're going to be able to tag these so that people, when they look for obnoxious young voiceover, it will load up your sample. The more samples you have, typically, the better it is. Now, you don't want to just load up garbage samples. You still want them to be high quality so that when people find them, they sound good. But you want to make sure that you're actually putting in all of these samples. Hey man, thanks for all the great content. I've created commercial and character samples of my work since I'm still at the pre-demo stage, but is it too soon to make a website? That is an absolutely amazing question. And that's going over a little bit of the direct marketing aspect of things here. I used to be of the mindset that you didn't have to make a website, right? Your online presence will speak for itself, whether that be social media or anything like that. But this is something that I talk about heavily. And this is something that I've spoken with casting directors about. And this is something that I've spoken with my own mentor about. The reason why you have a website is so that you can send people to a place that doesn't have a bias against. If you have a casting director or someone come to you and say, hey, love your work. I'd love to see your website. Let's say they reach out on Twitter and you send them to Fiverr. It's going to already bias them against who you are as a professional. Now, I know that's BS. I am of the same mindset, but that's just how the industry works. That is the one main reason why I now advocate for voice actors to get their own personal website because it is a free place. It's not free, you pay for it, but it's a place where you can send people where there is no bias. You control the tone, you control the approach, you control what you put on it. Even if you have samples, what you can simply do, and casting directors will say this all the time, put those samples together, as long as they're high quality samples, and just let them play a couple of seconds of each of the samples. It doesn't have to be a demo. All people are looking for is what is your tone? What is your approach to acting? And what can you do with a character? Even if they're just samples, that is 9 times out of 10, if you're just sending someone something so that they can get a quick idea, that is still going to be perfectly fine. A demo is something that you wanna wait a couple of years to do because it's going to essentially be your calling card. It's going to be the thing that you send out to agents, that you send out to casting directors. It's a part of your entire portfolio. So before you even put a demo together, I highly recommend you do get that personal website with whatever your name is, like www.javonhenry.com, and you have your samples on that website so people can take a look at your samples. People can take a look at your resume and people can just get a sense about who you are as a person. So have a nice about me page, your resume, your samples, a contact, and then you're good to go. It can just be a one page. Like I said, if you want an example, just go to www.javonhenry.com. Boom. The link is in the actual chat. You can just check that out. That's my one page website, and that is all you need. You don't need really anything more than that. That's a great question. And that's going to the direct marketing field of today's talk. I did a lot of my, and I still do a lot of my work on voices.com, on Fiverr, on a lot of these online websites. And one of the biggest issues that you run into time and time again when it comes to actually doing work on an online platform is that you have no communication and no connection with the client. Now, I know for a lot of people that's going to be perfectly fine, right? You do a job on any of these platforms, the check clears exactly the same. You still get the same amount of money at the end of the day as if you had a direct relation, and you don't have to worry about invoicing most of the time. You don't have to worry about happy that you caught the live. Hey, what's going on? Yeah, most of the time you don't have to worry about invoicing. Most of the time you don't have to worry about any of this stuff when you're on a free to play or a pay to play website. But the biggest issue is you don't have any communication with the client. Like, I'm working with a huge client right now. They're in Las Vegas. I can't say what the project is because it's under NDA, but I'm working through a third-party website. And the issue is that I can't communicate with them whatsoever. So I had a problem with the script because it has to be specifically timed. And so I sent back the timing and it was a little bit wonky in order to meet their timing requirements. So this is the process that had to happen. Instead of me just connecting with the client and being like, "Hey, this is a little bit wonky. Thanks a lot, and the website is impressive. Thank you so much." Yeah, that's just a Squarespace website that I threw together. It really doesn't have to be all that complicated. You can just use a Squarespace template as long as you have that resume, some samples, and an about me page. That's typically all that a lot of people are looking for. Um, yeah, I had to reach out to the pay to play website. They reached out to the client reached out to them, they reached back out to me, I had to redo it, send it to the pay to play website, then they send it to the client and have communication with the client. That is ridiculous. It's ridiculous from a perspective of a lot of these websites are so worried about you stealing a client from them because they make their money from those middle fees, from the 20% that they take from you, and typically more than 20% that they take from the client. And that's just their business model. That's how they make money. That's why they don't want you to take the client away and charge them yourself, because then they wouldn't make their 20% cut. So, what direct marketing essentially does is it helps to build a relationship specifically with you and specifically with a client. When you build this relationship, they come straight to you, right? You're on their roster, you're on their list. Even if they don't come to you every single time, you are on their list. And that is one of the most important things that you can do to get consistent, timely work building this relationship with these clients. Now, it was also one of the hardest things that I've ever had to do. I'm not very much so an outgoing person, right? I love acting. I love theater, which seems like I should be an outgoing person. But a lot of the times when it comes to building these relationships, it's one of the hardest things that I've ever had to do. So, keeping that in mind, how do you actually go about building these relationships so that you can start directly marketing to people? The easiest way to do this is to go to conferences, go to voiceover conferences, go to video game conferences if you want to do video game voice acting. Go to conferences in the field that you want to be a part of. If you want to be an anime dub voice actor, you should be going to anime conventions. That way you can start to speak with people. You can start to meet people in the industry. You can start to tell people what you do. You can start to share around information, whether that be going to a Comic-Con, whether that be going to one of the many anime conventions, or whether that be going to an actual voiceover convention. That way you can start meeting other voice actors in person. That way you can start meeting other casting directors and you can start to build and forge these relationships. And this way, you can start to join rosters. One of the biggest hacks that I can provide right now is you don't need to simply join a free to play or a pay to play website. If you go on Twitter and you look up a lot of casting directors, they will have their own roster, whether that is Julia Bianca, whether that is with Sarah Sikora. They have their own rosters because they cast a lot of the time. So all you need to do is look up and see if their roster is open. Because if it is, you can join their roster, and that is a more direct relationship where they're charging industry rates. Therefore, you get paid industry rates where you're not worrying about them taking a 20% cut, right? They already are getting paid for their duties of casting. So their business model isn't taking anything from you. It is literally just they get paid for casting. So building these relate life a lot easier. But one of the biggest problems that I've run into is a lot of voice actors hate AI, right? AI is going to be something that transforms the industry, not necessarily for the better. I mean, not necessarily for the worst, but it just depends on how people use it. But if you position yourself as against AI, staunchly against AI, and you don't want to work with any companies that are instituting it, that are utilizing it for any work, well, guess what? A lot of these online pay to play or free to play websites you can no longer utilize. If you were making all your money from voices.com, they just opened their beta program for voices.ai. Now, there's a little bit less to worry about there. I went through and I listened to a lot of the samples that they had and stuff, and a lot of it is still pretty gnarly. A lot of it is not up to snuff yet, and there are a lot of copyright challenges when it comes to using AI. Like, you can't use AI and have a copyright claim on the AI. That just got passed, which is very nice. So that's going to set things back a little bit. You can't just use AI for copywriting. But understanding that if you were against AI from the get, like you said, I will never work with a company with AI, and you were making all of your money from voices.com, you now have a decision. Are you going to stick to your guns and say, okay, I'm deleting and canceling my voices.com account? Or are you going to say, oh, it's okay if Voices uses it, right? When you build your business off of the backs of other websites, you can't control what they do, which is the same reason why having a personal website is so important. Because if you send someone over to Fiverr, no matter all of the stuff that you have on it, they're still going to say, but I like Fiverr or I don't, which means I like you or I don't to a certain extent. Oh, thank you so much, Mariah. I appreciate that. Yes, if you like this, please go ahead and share this. I am actually in the process of building a what's that phrase? Soup the nuts. I'm in the process of building my first and only, as I will say it, voiceover course, which is going over everything that I have ever wanted in my 4 years of going full time. So I just celebrated my 4-year anniversary about a month and a half ago of going actual full time. And this year has been absolutely incredible. Just the amount of people who I've been able to work with. I've been able to work with Hale, with JB Blanc. I've been able to work with Lisa Lee, Ariana Ratner. I've been able to work with some of titans in the industry, and it's been just an amazing year. And I wanted to create something that can give a actual walkthrough of someone who's owned creative businesses, an actual walkthrough of what is important to do in this industry, not so that you can get work, but so that you can make it so that getting work is easier, right? Acting is the one, well, not acting, creative industries, whether you're a musician, whether you're an actor, whether you're a painter, it's one of those few industries where you're going up against a lot of other people. You are going up against a lot of other people who are also very talented. And one of the best things I will say for you, for everyone listening, is that eventually you get to a point where the acting in and of itself, I know this sounds so cheesy and it's going to sound like I'm just straight lying to you guys right now. A lot of the beauty of acting after a while, after you go full time, comes from the fact that after a while that you realize is you're not really going up against anybody else when it comes to you auditioning, right? You can have 100 other people that you're going up against. But one of the main mantras that I have and that I want you and everybody to know is after a while, if it's meant for you and you're going to get it, it's meant for you and you get it. Like going into an audition and saying, "Oh, I really need this," or "Oh, I really hope that I get this." It's great to want a role. It is great to want to audition and really want a part or something, but that comes through in your actual audition. If you go in desperate to get a role, that comes through and you're not free to actually work to get that role, if that makes any sense. So, long story short, I'm making a course that goes over everything from gear to pay to play, free to play websites to marketing to your website to acting techniques, which is the thing that I'm the most passionate about. And yeah, I can't wait to get back onto the topic of free to play or pay to play websites. We're going to be wrapping this up real soon. It's a really crappy rainy day, but I wanted to get on and give this little talk before going back to my auditions. Um, make sure that you're looking into doing direct marketing. And I know that that is more difficult than it seems. You need to worry about getting a funnel. Are you going to be reaching out to people via LinkedIn? Do you drop people's emails? What is the template for emailing? Because you don't want to come off as being annoying and spammy. Trust me, I've been through all that. I have emailed literally hundreds of people. And from those hundreds, when you distill it down, maybe you only get like 15, 20 responses, right? The thing about it is, when we were kids growing up, everybody needed to learn how to walk. And we weren't afraid of falling and getting back up and going again and falling and getting back up. And eventually, boom, bam, bizzle, we were walking. We were good. The issue when it comes to business is not only business, but creative things in general. As we get older, we get afraid of falling. We get afraid of someone not answering our email. And then we think, oh, did I just say this wrong? Am I being annoying? Should I reach back out? Should I do this? Should I do that? Direct marketing, reaching out to clients, whether that be to publishers, to animation studios, whether that be to indie animators, whether that be to indie video game creators, it is all about the practice of falling and getting back up, figuring out what you want to say and how you can approach so that you're not simply looking to start a conversation of, hey, can you pay me for doing my thing? But you're looking to start a genuine conversation of, hey, I love your project. I love your work and I'd love to work with you. Let's just chat about what I can do. And based on if they need what you can do, you can then get into the conversation about money. You can then start talking about what your fee is, what the service is, what your timeline is, all of this information. But this all comes from practicing sending these emails, from spending an hour to 2 hours a day just looking through and seeing what studios you want to work with, what agencies you'd like to work with. Do you want to work with Bang Zoom in the animation realm? Would you rather go with AAA publishers, like biggest things? In this industry, it is an industry tension of, hey, I want to get paid for doing this for you without starting that genuine conversation. One of the best relationships that I have in this whole industry came from somebody who is a casting director. And I reached out because I noticed that they loved tea. So I reached out and I was like, hey, I love tea too. I love specifically chai. It is my favorite. Have you ever tried this type of tea? They said, no. I said, cool. I have a whole bunch of boxes. Let me send you a box. Tell me what you think. And we started a relationship based solely off of tea. We would share recipes. We would talk about different types of flavors that eventually moved to coffee. And then what happened from there? Eventually, they found out the fact that I was a voice actor. And they were like, "Oh, you're a voice actor. Send me your stuff. I'd love to actually see your stuff." And that was an organic relationship versus just going, "Hey, I'm a voice actor. I'm going to send you all stuff." Building relationships in the industry is one of the most important you can do because it sets the tone that this is a lifelong relationship or at least a professional length relationship that's based more off of I want you to pay me for doing this thing. It's based off of I want to get to know you so I can see where your problem is and then I can see if I can fit in and fix that problem. And one of the last things that I'll leave you with, there's nothing wrong with forging relationships in the industry. A lot of the time, people tell me that it feels phony or that it feels fake to reach out and speak with casting directors. And leave it in the chat. Do you ever feel like an imposter reaching out to people? What is your biggest problem when it comes to actually direct marketing or talking to someone? What is your biggest pain point? Because a lot of the time, people let me know that they just feel phony or they feel fake. But here's the thing, there's two things. Number one, the job of a casting director is to find the best fit for a role. So they are always looking to see new people. They always want to hear about new people because that's their job. Their job is to find the best person, the diamond in the rough, the next person who can be the big name that they brought onto the project. So reaching out and contacting people who are casting directors is never a bother depending on how you actually reach out and contact them. Don't be spammy, don't be annoying, but know that you're never a bother for introducing yourself and saying hello. That's number one. Number two, understand that There's nothing wrong with forging relationships in the industry with people who you actually genuinely like, who you actually wanna get to know, and who can help further your career. It is not parasitic to go up to someone who's a casting director and say, "Hey, I'd love to chat. I'd love to talk with you. I'd love to get to know you." Versus going up to a banker and going, "Hey, I'd love to chat. I'd love to" like, yes, these are 2 human beings. One can do something for you. One can do pretty much nothing for you, depending on what you're looking for. But there's nothing wrong with saying, "I would rather talk with this person instead of this person," right? That's not parasitic. Just because they can help your career doesn't mean that you are using them. It means that you're trying to forge strategic relationships with people who are actually in your industry, which is not wrong and it's not bad. Going back to a question, it kind of feels like you are using them, but that's a fair point. It should be exactly. That is one of the biggest things. It feels like we're using them because we're making the relationship with the underlying assumption that they will do something for us, and that is 100% fair. However, just like you said, it should be mutually beneficial. So the assumption isn't underlyingly they are going to do something for us. It's we can do something for each other. If a casting director casts you, it is because they trust that you can do an amazing job to fulfill the role that they're looking for, whether that is commercial, video game, interactive, or anime dubbing, anything of that nature. So building this relationship is not from a perspective of you can do something for me. It's from a perspective of we can do something for each other. And building relationships doesn't just have to be with casting directors. You should be building relationships with other voice actors, with video game developers, with people who are in the industry. So that way, you are a member of the industry. And then people will naturally find you. After a while, it's not even so much a fact of building strategic relationships. People will just find you via social because you've built relationships in the industry and people know who you are. I actually don't mind reaching out to other people and networking, but I just feel like it's too early in my career. That is a very good point. So one of the things that is unique about this industry, I would say, is too early in your career is the same thing that I felt when I was first getting started. I always thought, okay, I just need this certain demo, I just need this certain thing, and then I'll be able to start reaching out, making these contacts, making these connections. But one of the things that I feel is the most important to convey is if you have equipment, if you have your microphone, your audio interface, your computer, you can record, you've done this before, you have, as you said, you have samples because you've done jobs before, or you've created professional sounding samples. You know how to edit, you know the industry rates to charge, you understand everything that people are looking for. Just because you're not fully prepared and fully fleshed out doesn't mean that you're not a professional. If you go I haven't gone to acting school, this is just an example. If you go to school and you learn all of by all intents and purposes, ready to do the thing. As long as you've done the thing and you have samples, you're ready to do the thing. Acting is one of those few fields, and I feel like I only have this benefit because I've been in photography, I've run a recording studio, so I've come from outside of this field to inside of this field. Acting is one of those things where we have a real emotional connection with our work, which is it is amazing and it's necessary to do our work. But on the other side of that, on the business side of that, they're kind of 2 separate entities. So, for example, what I did in order to build up, my roster of clients, my roster of work, is I made fake samples. I sat in my closet for about 2 weeks, and I made fake samples. So, I did, like, samples for Burger King and samples for Netflix and movie trailers, and I didn't actually work with anybody. I just made all of these samples. I went on, I put them all on my actual website, and I put them all on the pay to play and free to play websites. And I just filled out my bio, and I went out and I reached out to people and said, "Hey, I'd love to introduce myself. My name is Javon. I see that you are the head of marketing at such and such company. Um, I just saw that you released a commercial, and mm, I think that I would be able to do it better. Here's a sample of what I have done." Then I would literally just send out a sample. Sometimes I'd get a bite, sometimes I wouldn't. A lot of the times, believe it or not, I would, because I would look strategically for ones that were either AI generated or just didn't sound that great. Just because you're early on in your career doesn't mean that you are any less prepared to start reaching out to people, because you still have the goods. If you've got the samples, you've got the goods, as long as they're professional. The only thing that holds people back is the worry about being blacklisted in this industry, which is a real thing. It's not as prominent as a lot of people think that it is, but it is very possible to be blacklisted. And what I say to that is, people are really fickle in this industry. Please don't worry about being blacklisted, because here's the thing. If you're not recording on a certain microphone, people might go, "Oh, that's not professional. I'm not going to work with them until you got a TLM 103." If you're not using a certain piece of software, "Oh, he's using Audacity? I'm not working with, oh, he's using Fiverr. I can't work with a Fiverr." Like, there are so many things that people are concerned with in this industry that make absolutely no difference to the end result of actually getting work. That's why I always advocate for, you need to be your best cheerleader, because there are a lot of fickle people in the industry who will tell you a lot of things that you need. My whole bare minimum, like, when I tell you there are people recording in their closet, Blue Yeti microphone, who have cleared tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars on commercial work, on video game projects, on, anime dubbing. Like, you don't need a lot of the stuff that people will blacklist you for. You've gotta be your own biggest cheerleader, because understanding the very basics, the bare minimum, you can start to actually make a full-time job. So, reaching out to people is not bad, no matter if you're just getting started, as long as you're just ready to introduce yourself and ready to try and make it a long-term relationship. But go ahead and get to that. But have a nice day, everybody, and we'll see you next Monday. Have a nice one.